Okay, I've started the recording. So, I just wanted to ask, uh, like, is everyone, does anyone has doubt about vertex, edge, or face? Everybody understands what it is? The whole class was about that yesterday. Basically, what polygons are. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Okay, all right, good. So that part is clear. Let's continue. So I told you guys about different cameras that we have in Maya, that we press space bar to get into different views. But we don't always have to switch to different views. Like right now I have the perspective mode open. I can press space bar. Okay, whenever you press space bar, and if you let it go, if you just tap it once, then you will see four views. But if you keep holding space bar, lots of options will appear. So all of these options are basically the menu panel that we have at the top. So it appears here as well so that you don't have to go constantly at the top to get a particular option. Okay. So once you press space bar and you keep pressing it, you can click on left mouse button. And as soon as you click on that, more options will appear. So these are this is how you get access to different cameras that we have. So right now, if I just hover on perspective view and let it go, nothing will happen because right now we're already in the perspective view. If I press space bar and I go to the left view, you can see we are now in the left camera. You can see this camera name written here. So this lets us know which camera it is. I will press space bar again, left click, and then I'll go to right view. Now we're at the right view. And if I click on front, we are now in the front. You don't see the cube changing because it looks the same from all angles. But if you look at this name here, you will see that the camera is actually changing. Okay. So once you have a very complex model, you will be able to see it differently in all the views. Okay. So this is how we change camera views. Okay, press space bar, keep on pressing it, left mouse button, hover on which camera you want and let it go. Let the lift up your mouse button and you will be in that view. Okay. All right. So now that is clear. Uh, let's talk about the settings. So yesterday we did talk about it, but the class got really long. So I cut it short. Now we will start with a fresh mind, everyone is fresh today. So we'll see these settings again. So we all have seen the channel box completely, what it does, how to hide and unhide objects. But whenever you import any of the 3D objects from here, these are also known as 3D primitives. Okay. So there are always some options that you can alter. So if I click over here, those options open up. For each of the mesh, the options are different according to what the mesh is. Okay. So first of all, we have this width option. If I click left mouse button and drag the mouse left and right, you will see the width of this cube is changing. We can alter the height and the depth. Okay. Then we have something known as subdivisions. So subdivisions basically means whenever you add an extra edge, it divides it into two sections. Let me add it manually. So I will just use a tool. We will talk about more, talk more about this tool today. But right now I just want to show you. So I'm just taking that tool and I'm drawing an edge. So you can see I added an edge, okay? And it's an edge loop. Why? Because it's connected from one end to the other end, okay? And by adding that edge, we divided this area into two sides, right? So we got two subdivisions. When you add an edge, you get more divisions in your faces. So when you add add just one edge, you get two subdivisions. If I were to add two, we would get three sections. Okay, so that's what subdivision is. So if pressed undo, now we can come over here and we can add it from these settings. You can see if I go to subdivision width and if I scroll it, you can see we are getting edges. So we've got 5 sections here. Even though if we count the number of edges in between, these are just 4. But they're giving us 5 divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So we've got 5 here. We can also add it in the height and in the depth. Okay. So you can see now our model has lots of squares, lots of polygons. So basically we have increased the resolution of our cube. If I take a default cube, they look very similar if you're not selecting anything, right? But when we select them, we can see the difference. This one is having more resolution. This one has less resolution. Let's talk about resolution more in depth. So I will take another cube, duplicate it, keep one over here. So there's one thing in Maya, like when we press 1, we see really sharp and hard edges. Okay, if I press 3, you can see this cube has collapsed into a ball. It has become a ball because it is not having enough resolution. Okay, that's why this happened. Now, I will show you one more thing. Like when we press 3, what happens here, I want to show you manually. So I'll go to this next cube and we have an option called smooth over here. In the shelf, you can see this 4th tool in this line. It says smooth. And you can see it's written, it add faces to the selected polygons objects to smooth them. Okay. So 1 second, we are having more people. Let me admit them. Okay. All right. So we have the cube selected and I will click on this smooth option. As soon as I click on that, let me undo it and I'll show this again. Just see this face. You can see it is just one square, right? It's not having any divisions. But as soon as I press smooth, that one single square has been divided into 4 squares. And that has happened on all the sides. Along with division, it has also made the whole mesh softer, right? And you can see we have this division number here. It is set to 1 right now. So by default, when you apply this option, everything gets divided and one face gets divided into 4 parts. Okay, this is how subdivision smooth works. So if I type the number 2 here, you can see, look at this little square. Okay, you can see right now we have 4 squares. If I increase the number to 2, that particular square again has been divided into 4 squares. So wherever there is a square, it just keeps on getting divided, all right? Which in turn increases our resolution. Resolution means more number of polygons, okay? I will again duplicate this and I will again increase the resolution, but this will be a little bit different. I'll go to edit mesh. We have add division option here. Okay, so mesh, edit mesh, these are just our main menus. From here we can access different tools. Okay, so by the way, the smooth option that we accessed through the shelf is also available here. Okay, so I'll go to edit mesh and I'll click on add division. You can see this one is much more easier to understand because it's not collapsing the mesh. You can see it's maintaining the form. It has just divided one square into 4 squares. And if I type the number 2 here, you can see again, those single sphere squares have been divided again into 4 squares. So now you can see, like if we compare these 2 meshes, they have the same number of polygons. Okay, because we divided them twice and they have the same number of polygons. It's just that this one is smoother. This one is maintaining the form. And now for this one, if I press 3 on it, you can see it looks very similar to this mesh. If I'm not selecting anything, you can see they look absolutely identical. So this is what smooth preview does in Maya. See, when we're modeling something, we get really hard edges, right? Because we cannot instantly increase the number of polygons. If we do that, we will face trouble in modeling our well, like whatever you're modeling, you will face trouble in that. So we don't increase resolution instantly. We slowly increase according to our needs. So the thing is, when we're modeling, we do want to see how the final mesh would look like. So the final mesh always has more resolution because you've modeled it nicely, and in the end you want a really nice and smooth mesh. So you need to increase the resolution towards the end, but while you're modeling, you don't want to do something like this, because if you smooth it out, you will end up with more polygons, which will be difficult to handle. So instead, what we do is we always press 3 and check how our model would look if we were to increase the subdivisions. If we were to smooth it out, how would it actually look like? So this is just giving us a preview. Okay, we can go back and forth and keep on checking how the final output would look like. In this case, we cannot go back and forth. When you add or increase the subdivisions level, you cannot go back. Okay, so this is not a good workflow. We don't increase subdivisions instantly. We gradually increase it. But while we're modeling, we can always press 3 to smooth it out and check everything. Okay, now if I press 2, you will see a cage kind of a look appears. So this cage is actually having the same shape as our actual mesh. But when we press 2, we basically see the cage also, and we also see our smooth version. If I press 3, that cage disappears. So this, whenever you press 2, you get to see your actual mesh and your smooth mesh. Okay. 1, you have to press 1. Okay. So when you press 1, this is how it looks. When you press 3, this is smooth. When you press 2, you get a caged look. Okay. Where you're able to see your low polygon version and your smooth version also. Understood? Okay, so as we can see, we can go back and forth. Now, let's see what happens if I press 3. Let's see what happens if we were to go to the vertices and the faces. So in order to go to that, I will right click and I will click on vertex. You can see the vertex is appearing properly on this this little ball. But if I click on it, you can see it is highlighted, but our manipulator or our move tool is appearing here. It's not appearing right on this mesh. Why? Because it's just giving us a preview. This is a preview, okay? The mesh at the base has not changed. If I press 1, you can see this is where our actual vertex is, right? If we click on it, we see that the vertex is highlighted and our move tool appears right on top of it. But when we press 3, our move tool remains as the same place, but you can see the vertex is right over here on the model. So this is basically giving us a preview. Now, in case of this mesh where we've actually increased the resolution, if we go to vertex and I click on the vertex, you can see the move tool is appearing right over it. Okay, because this is the actual shape of the mesh. In this case, we are just creating an illusion. Okay, it's easier to understand if you think of it as an illusion. And if I press 2, it's much more easier to understand. You can see your actual shape is this, and that's where the move tool is. But when you change that, you can see how the smooth mesh would appear. Okay. Is this part clear to everyone? Please tell me if you have confusions, because this is important to understand. I will repeat it if you want. Just write in the chat box. Okay, looks like it's clear. Nobody is asking for second explanation. Okay. Now for this mesh, we actually increased the resolution, right? We applied the smooth option here to increase the resolution, to increase the number of polygons, to increase the number of faces, right? Faces are these four-sided polygons, okay? So when I've selected this mesh, I have pressed 1. So you can see uh, it is still not appearing very nice and smooth. Why? Because it doesn't have enough resolution to appear that smoothly. But if I press 3, you will see it looks so nice and round. Look at it. Nice and round, but if I press 1, this is the actual shape. But if we press 3, it appears nice and round. Now let's see what happens with this. When we have the default setting set to 1, this is how it appears. If I press 3, 1 second. If I press 3, this is how it appears. Everything has become softer. Okay. Now, if we compare these two meshes, when we press 1, they look exactly the same. But the resolution is different, right? This one has very less polygons, like only 6 polygons are there. It's like a dice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we only have 6 polygons here. So that's why when we press 3, it completely collapses. It doesn't have enough resolution to maintain the shape. But in this one, you can see we have so many polygons. Like just covering this face, we have 4 over here. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So yeah, 16 on this side, 16 on this side, and so on. So you can see we have a very large number of polygons over here. So that's why when we press 3, the shape doesn't change completely. But in the case of this cube, when we press 3, it completely collapses because there are only 6 faces. It doesn't have enough resolution to maintain its shape. Okay. So if we want it to be if we want to maintain its shape, then what we have to do is we have to add edges into it. So you can either go here. Okay, by the way, I duplicated this so you can see the default settings we have are not available to us. So you can create another cube and the settings are now visible. Okay. When you duplicate an object, the base settings disappear. Okay. So we don't have base settings here, but we want to increase the resolution. What we want is that when I press 3, it should maintain its form. It shouldn't completely collapse into a ball. So what we have to do is we have to add edges. So we will be manually adding edges using a tool, which I showed earlier. So if you go over here in the shelf, you can see this first tool. It looks like a knife. If I click on that, and as soon as you click on it, you will see that your cube will turn, like all the edges will turn blue in color because we're getting access to all the vertices and edges. Okay, this particular tool works with those components. So vertex, face, and edge, these are known as components. Okay, when we combine all of these together, we end up with an object. So whenever you activate this tool, it will show you all the components. So you can see whenever I'm hovering over it, wherever we have a vertex or an edge, it's highlighting it. Because as I said, this tool works with those components. So it's a very simple tool. When you hover over it, it looks very weird. But all you have to do is, while you have the object selected, press Control. As soon as you press Control, you will see some edges will start appearing. So you have to make sure to keep pressing Control in order to see these. So these are giving you a preview. Okay. So like right over here, if I press Control, I can see a preview of the edge loop that I would get. But if I'm not clicking anything, I'm not getting the edge. If I let go the control, nothing happens. So I want an edge over here. So for that, what I have to do is press Control, and let's say I want the edge over here. So I'm pressing Control and I will click on the left mouse button. And now you can see I have the edge. Okay. So I will undo that. I actually don't want the edge there. I want it closer to the top. Now there is a reason why I want it closer to the top. I will show this. Let's first add the edge. So I will press Control and add it here. So you can see we have the edge. Now, if I press 3, you can see it is trying to maintain the shape a little bit. Now we have to understand that this cube has 4 sides, right? Now we have only added an edge over here. If we want the shape to be more precise, we need more edges. But let me show you how this is actually changing the shape. So I'll press 3. Let me first select this edge that we added. I will press 3. Okay. So I'm going to press 2 so that you can see the actual shape as well. So if I have this edge selected, if I move it around, you will see how the actual mesh is reacting. See, in between, it's looking really puffy. But whenever you move it closer to your main outer edge, things become sharper, right? But when they're in the middle, it's not that sharp. So whenever you want to hold a shape, you want to add more edges close to your main edges. The edge that I've added here can be known as a supporting edge. Okay, it is trying to support the base shape. It is failing to do so right now because we don't have enough edges covering the other sides. So let's add other edges. I will press 1. I will take this multi-cut tool again. I will press Control. So initially we added the edge here. This time we'll add it across the width. Okay. So I want it again closer to the edge. So I will click here. And now you can see we have an edge here. If I press 3 right now, you can see this side is appearing sharper compared to the other sides. Why? Because now it has the support of 2 edges. We have one going at the bottom and one going at the top. Okay, so basically we created a sandwich. This was the original edge. We added one at the top. We added one at the bottom, which has given us a sharper edge. Okay, it is sharp, but it is still smoother compared to our base mesh. Okay, so we're getting this softness and sharpness kind of a look here. Now let's add it on this side as well. I will press Control, hover over here and left click. So I've added another edge. Now if I press 3, you can see both of these sides are appearing sharp, but this one and this one is still pretty round. Now if you want them to be sharp as well, then you need to add edges there. So I will take the multi-cut again and I will press Control, add 1 over here, press W to exit the tool and press 3. Now you can see, now we have 3 sides which are sharp. This one is not, because again, here we don't have a sandwich yet. So let's go back to the multi-cut and add another edge here the same way. And now if I press 3, you can see we are having sharp edges from all sides. Now if we compare it to a general cube, you can see the difference. This one is looking way too sharp, and this is something which doesn't exist in reality. Whenever you see any object, no object is this sharp. Okay, it is completely having a very, very thin line over here. Of course, if it's a knife or something like that, only such objects would have really sharp edges. But if you have a shape like this, it wouldn't be sharp like this unless you specifically sit and sharpen it. And that can only be done with metallic objects. So you can see this one is looking so much better and more realistic. This is what a dice would look like. We also have dices shaped like this, but generally this is how we have dices shaped like. We don't have such objects. They look very ugly also. And the reason they look ugly because we are not used to seeing such sharp edges. Okay, I will move this apart. So we have done everything for the top. You can see the bottom is not looking round as before. It's looking a lot better, but still not sharp enough. And there's a reason. Yes, Hardik, you have to put edge loops whenever you're creating a model. Only then you will get the desired edges, right? Only then you can create the base model. Okay. So yeah, so you can see whenever we added these edges, since they are edge loops, they're covering the bottom part as well. And this is why when we press 3, this area is looking a lot better. It's not looking same as the top. And can anybody tell me why? Look at this structure and see. I will show you the top, see this structure, and see this one. Can anybody tell me why this area, when we press 3, it's not appearing as nicely as this one, as sharper as this one? Exactly. So we need an edge loop at the bottom. Okay, just like this one, we have an edge loop here, right? But at the base we don't have it. At the top we have a sandwich on all sides. This was our original edge, this one is covering it, this one is covering it. Same is happening on this side, same is happening on this side as well. Everywhere we're getting sandwiches. But at the bottom, if we compare our main edge, we only have one supporting it. We don't have at the top. That's why we end up with this shape. So what we'll do is, yes, exactly. Everyone is right in the chat box. Good. So we'll take the multi-cut, we'll press Control and add it. And now if we press 3, you can see it's looking really nice. Okay, nicely smooth. Now, of course, this object looks much more realistic compared to this one. And of course, this one is also realistic only because we do have dices shaped like this. Okay. So this is the importance of edge loops. Is this clear to everyone? If you have any doubts, just let me know. So I'll make it clear to you. Okay. All right then. So everyone is clear? Okay, so I'll show you one more thing. Whenever you have an edge loop, that means this whole area is starting and ending, like it's starting from here and also ending here, right? That means it's a loop. What is a loop? A loop is something which is obviously connected from all ends, like a cycle. So whenever you have a loop in Maya, you can just double click on it and Maya will select it for you. If there is no loop, then you will not be able to get a selection like this. Okay, there will be instances later on when we'll model it. You will see that there are certain areas and you try to double click on it, you will not get the desired selection. And the reason for that is because that particular edge is not inside of a loop. Okay. Oh, actually we do have it. See this one. If I double click on it, it's not selecting the full thing. It is staying here only. Now you might be thinking, it is starting and ending at the same point. It should be selected, but it's not. That's because that's the base shape. Okay. Originally, this was the shape, right? So it is just having 4 sides. It's not capable of selecting all the 4 sides for you because that's the base shape. It's not inside of a loop. When you add an edge loop like this, that's when you're able to select it. Okay. Or like if we've added, let's say we've added an edge here. So it's a loop and I can go to edge and I can double click on it. This will work. But this, if you try to double click on it, it will not select the whole thing for you. Okay. Yes, of course. You can just double click on the edge loop and you can move it around, you can scale it, you can rotate it. Okay. That's how we actually create the models. We edit the edge loops or we edit the singular edges or vertices. We will start with a model now. We'll take it very slowly, so don't worry. I will not be very fast. Okay, so whenever you're trying to create a model, it's very important that you have a reference. Okay, if you try to create something out of your memories, the thing that you'll end up with will not look right. That's because we are unable to remember the proper dimensions, the proper proportions. Okay, so it's very important that we take a reference, whatever you're making. See, the artists who have been working for more than 10 years, not even 10 years is not enough. You have to be like at least be into this for over 15 years, and then you can start making things without references. But even then, the senior artists still take references. It's just that for basic things which they have done lots of times in their experience, they don't have to take references for those pieces. But whenever they go forward and start making more complex things, they always need a reference. Okay. So please understand that reference is very, very important. Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're doing modeling, whether you're sculpting, texturing, even if you're drawing something. I don't know how many of you draw. I used to draw before I got into this field. So I used to sketch a lot. I started when I was like in class second. So if I try to draw something out of my mind, it would not come out exactly how I pictured it. Because we think we know that it is correct, but when we start drawing it, we start to forget the actual dimensions. So I started using references and my drawing improved. And I'm sure everyone here who has drawn something, they will understand the importance of using a reference. So please understand whatever you're working with, anything artistic requires a reference. Okay. Unless you're a genius. Of course, there are genius people who exist and their percentage is very, very less. So these people, they can properly visualize it in their mind and properly draw or create that output. So those people are geniuses and percentage of them is very, very, very less. Okay. So for us normal people, we definitely used to, we definitely have to use a reference. Okay. All right. So we need to get a reference. So in this, let me show you 1 second. I'm just copying the directory of the reference. Okay. All right. So I will split the viewport. Whenever we're modeling, it's important that you split the viewport. That means you use two cameras. So you can go over here on the side and you see this option, the two boxes. Click on that. Now you have two views. You have the perspective and you have the front view. Okay. So I will go over here, click on view, click on image plane and click on import image. Okay. And I have already copied the folder directory. So I will paste it here. And this is the reference. I will open it. Okay. So we can see it here. We can also see it in this viewport. So an image plane looks like this. It's not a 3D object. So you cannot edit it with vertices or edges, but you can, of course, scale it, rotate it, or translate it. Okay. You can also hide it and unhide it. So you can see it is visible in both viewports. That's because we are not getting multiple viewports. We are looking into one single viewport with two different cameras. We have one for the perspective and one for the front. So the thing is, when we're modeling, we don't always want to see the image plane on both sides. Okay. We don't want to see them on both sides constantly. So the best thing about these viewports is that you can customize them. That means you can, like there is a setting, you can turn it on and this image plane will not be visible here. It will only be visible in this one. So let me show you that. So you see this option here, click on show. You can see there are lots of options. Don't be confused. Like as you're learning more and more things, you will understand what these things are for. Okay. So what you do is you go to show and you click on none. When you do that and you import anything, let's see, I will get a sphere over here. You can see it's visible on this side, but not on this side. It exists here, but it's not visible. Why? Because I went to show and I hid everything by clicking on none. If I click on all, everything will appear. Okay, right at the center. By the way, this center option is also known as the origin point. Okay, so I will again go to show and I'll click on none. Right now, nothing is visible. Then I'll go to show again and you see this option polygons. You can see the shortcut is here, Alt+2. You don't have to memorize the shortcut. Just go to show and click on polygons. Once you do that, only polygons will be visible. This image plane will not be visible in this viewport. Let's say you want to see it. If you want to see it, you can go to show and you can click on image plane and it will be visible to you again. Okay, but I don't want to see the image plane, so I'll go to this list and I will turn it off. So now only polygon is visible. So we can hide and unhide things like this. You have this line in between which allows you to make a particular camera larger or smaller. Okay, so you can use that. So this image plane is like really small. I want to make it larger. So I will expand it. You can see I am pressing on this yellow box. If you're constantly looking on this front view and like you might mistake and you tried you might accidentally click on this axis and you try to scale it up, then you will see it will look very funny. Why? Because it's getting scaled in the x-axis. That's why it is it's completely stretching out. We obviously don't want that. We want it to scale uniformly. And to scale uniformly, this little blue box has to be selected. So I'll click on that and only then I will scale it. Okay, so it's quite large now. And also, let me turn on image plane in this viewport. You can see it's right in the center. The problem is when we start the model, the polygon will also appear on it. So it will cause some issues down the line. So that's why I will take this image plane and push it back. Okay, so I've pushed it back and now I will hide it. It's hidden. You can see when I pushed it back, we couldn't see anything here. Like we couldn't see any change here. That's because we're in the front view. Okay, so we are completely looking at it from 90 degrees, completely straight. That's why we're not able to see it. But here we're looking at it in a perspective view. We're able to see all the volumes. Okay, so yeah, I will hide the image plane in this. Now that is done. We can come over here and we can also name it. Okay, as a, let me change the name. So you can just double click on it and you can change the names. Okay, so I've named it. And now we need to import our base mesh. Okay, so now we'll be making use of these base meshes. So yesterday I asked you that if we were to build a bottle model, what base mesh we would use. So mostly everyone answered a cylinder. And by looking at this model, we can clearly see that it needs a cylinder only. Okay, so I will go over here, click on the cylinder, and now we have cylinder visible. Okay. Now there is a small problem. When we're modeling it, like we will be using this view in order to shape the model properly. The thing is, this mesh is gray in color, right? So it is covering the whole thing. How do we see the reference image through it. For this, we have an option. If you go in these settings here, you see these three options. If you hover on the first one, it says X-ray. So if you click on that, you will see your mesh is now see-through. Okay, so now this will be easier to model with. In this viewport, you can see that mesh is still solid, but in this side, it is appearing see-through or translucent. That's because each viewport has different settings. So in this viewport, we didn't turn on X-ray. If we did, it would appear like this, but we don't want X-ray on this side since we are not actually seeing the reference here. So we can keep the X-ray off. Okay. And I also want to show one more thing. So by default, your mesh looks smooth like this, right? When you click on them, you see all these edges. So there is an option to see just the edges and not these solid colors. So if you go over here at the top, if you click on this first one, like if you just hover on it, it will show that wireframe is written on it. If you click on that, you will see that the gray color has disappeared. And if you let go of it, you will see that the edges are looking blue in color. So this is known as your wireframe. Okay. So we are able to see just the edges. If I click on this again, we will see the solid mesh, and we will also see the edges if we click on it. Now we have this third option here. You can see it's written wireframe on shaded. If I click on that, you will see the gray color, and on top of it, you can also see the wireframe, even though you're not selecting it. When we don't have this off, we have the default option, which is smooth shade. We don't see the wireframe. Only when we click on it, we see it. But when we're modeling, we do want to see the wireframe. So we use this option. Okay, so we're seeing shade also, and we're seeing the edges also without actually clicking on it. Okay. So I'll divide the viewport again. Now you can see I turned on X-ray, but since this is not selected, we cannot see the wire structure, right? Only when we click on it, we can see it. But when we're modeling here and we have turned on X-ray, we do want to see wireframe structure. So we can go at the top. You can see the same settings are here as well. I can just click on wireframe on shaded. And now you can see it is appearing properly. Okay. So I will enlarge it. Now you have to understand, this is very important. If you're just looking at this, okay, let's say you don't have two views on, you're only in the front view, and you try to scale it up, you will feel like what you're doing is right. But if I press space bar, you can see this mistake. Every new student makes this mistake. That's why I always say keep both the views on, because if you're making a mistake like this, you will instantly see it. It's very normal to do this because when we're new, we don't take care of each and everything because we're trying to learn. So this is why always keep the two views on so that whenever you're scaling it, and if you make this mistake, it will be visible to you. Okay. So what we have to do here is we have to scale it uniformly. You can also change the radius here. You can type, like you can see if I do, like if I type this 2 value, we have the perfect result. But we don't always use these options. So I'm going to manually scale it. Okay, so this is what I end up with. By the way, we can see the subdivision axis option, right? I can go low. You can see I cannot go lower than 3 because a polygon only exists when there are 3 edges. So we obviously cannot go lower than this. And this is the default amount that we have. Now we can also add subdivision along the height if we increase this option. I'm not going to increase it right now because I will manually add it. Okay, we will be using multi-cut so that you can become very, very familiar with this tool, because this is something that you will constantly use. Okay. So I'm not going to be adding any subdivisions in the height. Now there is another option here, subdivision caps. It is 1 over here. If I type 2, you can see I got an edge loop here. Okay, so whenever you're working with a cylinder, whenever you take it as your base mesh, always at least add one single edge. There's a reason for that. Let me show you. Let's just add one edge. Okay, no, let's keep it like this. Okay, so let's say we're modeling. Okay, we have added edges, we've done all the things. Let's add an edge here and I will scale it up. And now I have changed its base structure. If I go to polycylinder and try to add anything again, you will see it will disrupt it. See, the shape is getting disrupted completely. So we cannot make the changes after we have started modeling. So this causes issues. Now you might be thinking why I'm not taking use of multi-cut to add an edge here. Let me show you. If I take multi-cut, I can press Control and add an edge here. But at the top, if I press Control and try to add it, it doesn't allow me to do that. Right now I'm pressing Control. I'm not getting a preview. Here I'm getting a preview, but here I'm not. And there's a reason for that. This multi-cut works according to the base edges. You can see we have an edge here, we have an edge here, and in between we're adding an edge through multi-cut. So what this tool is doing, it's looking at this top edge, it's looking at this bottom edge, and this tool can understand what the actual shape is, and it can create an edge loop for you. But in this area, what's happening? We have this edge here, and in between, we don't have any edge. We have a vertex. Everything is connected to a vertex. That's why this tool doesn't work here. Okay. So in this case, what we do is we take the multi-cut and we actually, like if you click on the edge, you can see I've created a vertex and I can keep drawing. You have to just make sure to click on the edges and you can keep drawing on it and you will end up with an edge. So we do something like this, and this is of course really, like there are other ways also, but this is one way that we use. So we don't want to do that, right? So just to save yourself, make things easier for you, just add one subdivision here. Make sure to just type 2 and you will get a subdivision, one extra subdivision. And later, if you want to make any changes to this shape, you can obviously use multi-cut and you will be able to add more edges here. Now, if you try to add it here, this will still not work. Why? Because we have an outer edge and everything is getting converged into a vertex. So it will not add any edge here. But in this area, we have an outer edge and inner edge. So it's going to give you a nice edge loop. Okay. Is this clear to everyone? What I just talked about right now? Okay. All right. So actually, let's keep it till here. I wanted to start the model, but we covered lots of important things today. And it's better that everyone just practices those things. And tomorrow we will start building this model. Okay. Let me show you how you can save a file. Let's say you follow the class completely once I share the recording and you make it this much and you want to save your file. If you just close the file, it will not be saved. So how to save it? You can go over here, click on File, go to Save Scene, and you can create any folder wherever you want. Okay. Create a folder and you name your file and save it. Set project, Hardik, is something that we will cover later on. It will confuse everyone. This is the easiest way to understand. Set project is not something we constantly use because unnecessarily it creates bigger projects. So there are other instances where we use set project. Okay. Okay, guys, so what you have to do is just go to File, go to Save Scene, find a location, create a new folder. To create a folder, you see this option here. You just have to click on that and a new folder will be created. And inside of that, you can name your file and you can click on Save As. Okay. All right. So everything is clear. Whatever we covered today. If you have any doubts, please ask. Yes, Kushag, I will share the recording instantly. Yesterday, actually, I had to cut it down and I was also having late dinner. That's why the recording was sent late. Today, I will just share it instantly. Okay. So looks like nobody is having any questions, right? Okay, then let's keep it till here. Okay, good that you're trying. I will actually share this reference also so everyone can practice and make it this much. So from tomorrow, we will properly create this model. Okay. The reason that I've taken I always use this reference the first time because if you look at this bottle model, let me hide this polygon. You can see its shape is constantly changing. At the bottom, you can see it's more rounded, then it's straight in between, it's rounded again, then the bottle is getting thinner, then thicker, then thinner, and again the shape is changing. So this is a very good practice to anyone who is new to 3D. Okay. Okay, Kushagra, are you saying that after practicing you will have doubts? Now you don't have doubts. Is that what you're saying? Or you right now you have doubts? If you have doubts right now, ask me. Or if you're saying that you will have doubts after practicing, that is good. See, if you're having doubts, that is the best thing because it shows that you're actually practicing something, right? Because this is completely new. And if you're practicing something, you will definitely end up with doubts because it's new and I am there to guide you. Okay. So always practice. And in the next class, again, where before we start, I will ask if anyone has any doubts, they can ask me. Or you don't have to wait till the class to ask doubts. You can text me personally. Let's say for some reason your file is not saving or you're facing any issue at all. Just text me and I will guide you. Okay? And of course, in the class also, you can ask your doubts, but don't wait for so long. If your doubt maybe what issue you're facing might be really small, I can instantly guide you through text. So that's why always text me whenever you face any doubt, any issue. Okay. Okay, guys, then let's meet tomorrow.